The moment she walked into the room, time seemed to pause. Not because of lights or cameras, but because of the way Richard Gere looked at her. Like everything he'd been chasing finally stopped chasing him. At 74, the man once immortalized as the silver-haired heartthrob of Pretty Woman and American Gigolo wasn't reminiscing about red carpets or box office numbers. Instead, he offered a quiet truth that sliced through years of mystique. I didn't get divorced because they were wrong. I got divorced because I wasn't strong enough to hold on. It wasn't regret, it was realization. And in that one line, Richard Gere shattered the image of the untouchable Hollywood leading man and became something far more powerful. A man who had finally learned how to love. He had been married 3 times, admired across continents, known as the suave gentleman who could steal any scene or heart. But beneath that polished exterior was a soul still learning how to stay. He didn't just find love in his later years, he found peace. The kind that doesn't demand performance. A love that didn't ask for a version of him, but accepted the whole truth. "She's the love of my life," he said. And for the first time, no one questioned it. Long before the fame, Richard wasn't even aiming for stardom. He was a quiet, introspective kid from Pennsylvania, more interested in composing music than posing for cameras. A philosophy major turned theater enthusiast, he wasn't looking for attention. He was searching for meaning. But when Hollywood came knocking, he answered. And with it came the expectations. He played the charming man not only on screen but off it too. The kind of man who always said the right thing and left before morning. Richard's early romances were as intense as they were fleeting. Carol Mallory once called him a jewel shooting across the sky. And that's exactly what he was. Brilliant, fast, and impossible to hold. Then came Dawn Steele, a fiery editor turned trailblazing studio executive. Penelope Milford, his Days of Heaven co-star, brought stability in the 70s. And Sylvia Martins? She didn't just date him, she changed him. With her, he found meditation, Nepalese temples, and the profound quiet of Buddhist teachings. But back then, love to Richard was a doorway, not a home. He climbed the ladder quickly, looking for Mr. Goodbar, Days of Heaven, then American Gigolo. He was a sensation, but behind that dazzling aura was someone still untouched by emotional permanence. When the lights dimmed and the hotel door closed, Richard was alone, drifting in his own fame. At parties, whispers swirled. In tabloids, his smile beamed. But inside, he didn't yet know what it meant to be known, truly, by someone else. Then came a whirlwind. In 1988, at a backyard gathering in Beverly Hills, he met Cindy Crawford. She was 22, on the cusp of becoming fashion royalty. He was 39, already a cinema god. The chemistry, immediate. They moved in together in New York. And suddenly, the world couldn't look away. They weren't just a couple. They were an empire of beauty. Red carpets, magazine spreads, designer campaigns. They had it all. But here's the twist that the cameras missed. They were living on 2 entirely different timelines. While Cindy was learning how to navigate fame, Richard was already craving stillness. He retreated into meditation. She ran toward opportunity. They married in Las Vegas in 1991. No guests, just silver foil rings and a desperate hope to hold on to something pure. But real love isn't about dramatic gestures. It's about rhythm. And theirs never aligned. "I tried to become the woman he needed," Cindy once admitted, "and I lost myself." The marriage dissolved not with fireworks, but with silence. And in 1995, they separated quietly. 2 people who had once defined perfection, now unable to stay on the same page. Richard wouldn't speak publicly for years, but when he did, nearly 3 decades later, he delivered a masterclass in emotional maturity. "I loved a woman who didn't yet know who she was. I thought love would help her find stability. That was unfair. No one cheated. No one lied. They simply met at different chapters, one still flying, the other already searching for a place to land. After Cindy, Richard's spotlight dimmed, but intentionally. No more whirlwind romances or tabloid-fueled headlines. He disappeared into quieter roles and deeper passions. He traveled through Asia, leaned into Tibetan Buddhism, and found meaning in stillness. And then came Carrie Lowell, the ex-Bond girl, calm, elegant, and private. No flash, no frenzy. She wasn't a headline. She was a home. In 2000, Richard became a father for the first time at age 51. Their son, Homer, brought him something he never had before: roots. Fatherhood redefined him. The man who once feared permanence was now grounded by it. But even this chapter wasn't forever. In 2016, Richard and Carrie finalized their divorce. Yet there was no drama, only change. Because now, Richard knew how to love, even when it meant letting go. And that journey, from womanizer to wise man, came with more than emotional growth. Financially, Richard played the long game. His estimated net worth has hovered around $120 million, thanks to a career built on smart choices and minimalist living. While never obsessed with extravagance, he did invest in luxury in meaningful ways. Over the years, he's owned stunning estates, including a $28 million compound in Pound Ridge, New York, which he later sold to musician Paul Simon. His real estate portfolio wasn't about showing off. It was about creating sanctuaries. He's been spotted driving environmentally conscious yet elegant vehicles like the Lexus LS Hybrid and the Audi Q7, signaling his taste for comfort without excess. His collection of high-end watches reportedly includes brands like Patek Philippe and IWC, subtle sophistication without flash. But Richard's real wealth lies in his investments in humanitarian causes. He co-founded the Gere Foundation, supports AIDS research, human rights in Tibet, and countless silent philanthropic endeavors. While many stars chased business empires, Richard quietly built one around purpose. And in the less visible realms, he's protected that legacy. Industry insiders say Gere has maintained comprehensive insurance coverage, protecting not just physical assets, but also production liabilities, travel contingencies, and even philosophical nonprofits. He's lived cautiously, but not fearfully. The financial wisdom here? Invest in what aligns with your values. Protect not just your wealth, but your peace. In the hills of Pound Ridge, New York, where serenity cloaks the winding roads and whispers of fame are drowned out by rustling leaves, a story once full of hope slowly unraveled in silence. Carrie and Richard had chosen this quiet haven for a reason. No paparazzi, no flashing lights, no red carpets. Just the stillness of everyday life, and the idea that love, when nurtured away from the spotlight, might last forever. But the illusion of peace is often the first to crack when two souls grow in different directions. She needed movement and connection, and he needed solitude and meditation. And while they never yelled, never lashed out, it was the deafening quiet between them that told the real story. Their lives became parallel paths, always close, never touching. Carrie, once a vibrant figure in the entertainment world, found herself wandering through the empty halls of a home that no longer felt like hers. Richard, deeply introverted, spent weeks on retreats, losing himself in the stillness of Tibetan monasteries and the philosophies of letting go. The world assumed they were happy, but those closest knew better. As Richard once confessed privately, "Silence is beautiful, until it becomes a language you no longer understand." By 2013, the inevitable happened. Carrie filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. But underneath the legal jargon was something far more tender and tragic. Two people who, despite loving deeply, could no longer reach one another. The financial battle that followed stretched over 3 years, unraveling nearly $45 million in shared assets and sprawling real estate portfolios across the U.S. and abroad. Their Pound Ridge home, valued at over $10 million, became a quiet battlefield in itself, every room echoing with memories neither could bear to revisit. And yet in the eye of this storm, one thing remained sacred. Homer, their son, became the delicate bridge between them. Described as a quiet observer with the soul of a poet, he embodied the calmness of Richard and the empathy of Carrie. Co-parenting him became their unspoken truce. After the divorce, Richard disappeared from the public eye. No red carpets, no press junkets, no glossy magazine features. Hollywood speculated. Had he retired? Was he broken? Had he finally walked away from fame for good? But in truth, he was quietly healing. He wasn't lost. He was just no longer interested in being found. And then, when the world thought Richard Gere had closed the door on love, a quiet chapter opened. In 2014, while still entangled in legal papers with Carrie, Richard was seen with a familiar face, Padma Lakshmi. The host of Top Chef, model, and author, Padma carried her own emotional bruises from a public breakup with billionaire Ted Forstman, who'd been a guiding figure in her daughter's life. She wasn't seeking romance, she was seeking stillness. And that's precisely what drew them together. For a few tender months, they shared late-night conversations, simple dinners away from the flashing cameras, and a kind of gentle companionship born not of passion, but of mutual understanding. They were two souls recovering in parallel, and the beauty of their bond was its impermanence. They walked away not broken, but better. A close friend once said, "It wasn't a breakup. It was a parting of two travelers whose paths briefly aligned." What's astonishing is how this quiet interlude became a pivot point. Richard was no longer trying to fill a void. He wasn't chasing love to escape loneliness. He was learning to sit with himself, and that acceptance, that inner peace, made space for something unexpected. A love that didn't demand, didn't roar. A love that simply arrived. Alejandra Silva. She wasn't Hollywood royalty. She didn't walk runways or grace movie posters. She was a Spanish activist, a woman with kind eyes and a fire for justice. She'd slept on sidewalks in Madrid to understand homelessness firsthand and ran the Rise Foundation to fight it. Her heart was not for show. It was worn on her sleeve, raw and brave. When they met in 2014 at her family's hotel in Positano, it wasn't glamorous. She was in the middle of a difficult divorce, raising a son on her own. Richard was quietly exiting his past. But when their eyes met, neither saw pain. They saw possibility. It didn't start with fireworks. It began with flowers, with handwritten notes, with quiet songs, an old-school courtship in a world obsessed with speed. Alejandra resisted at first. The age gap, the fame, the fear of being the next Gere woman. It all weighed on her, but he didn't push. He waited. And slowly she saw what he was offering wasn't romance. It was sanctuary. They married in April 2018 in an intimate Buddhist ceremony, away from flashing cameras. Alejandra converted, not out of obligation, but because she resonated with the path Richard had walked for decades, one of compassion, stillness, and giving. Their connection wasn't built on the rush of attraction. It was carved through patience, mutual growth, and a shared vision of a quieter, purpose-driven life. Today, Richard Gere's net worth is estimated to be around $120 million, a figure that's not just the result of decades in Hollywood, but smart real estate investments and quiet producing roles. His properties stretch across New York, Connecticut, and beyond, including a sprawling estate in Bedford he listed at $28 million, and his Pound Ridge Sanctuary, known for its lush trails and meditation huts. His car collection is modest by celebrity standards but still elegant, featuring a silver Jaguar XK, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, and a rare vintage Porsche that he rarely drives but refuses to sell. Watches? A subtle collection of Patek Philippe and vintage Omega timepieces, understated like the man himself. And while he doesn't flaunt it, he reportedly uses a Gulfstream G450 for long-haul charity missions and discreet travel. Alejandra, too, brings her own legacy. The daughter of a powerful businessman, she's never flaunted her wealth but has redirected much of it into activism. Their combined financial portfolio is estimated to be worth over $160 million, and growing thanks to low-profile investments in clean energy and international properties, including a Mediterranean villa they quietly acquired near Malaga, Spain. Yet for all the wealth, what's most powerful is how little they lean on it. They live simply, meditate daily, and prioritize their children's privacy above all. Fame no longer defines Richard Gere. It shadows him, faintly, as he walks a different path. And just when you think you know where the story ends, a whisper rises. Richard Gere, once the smoldering Hollywood heartthrob of an officer and a gentleman, now lives his greatest role not on screen, but as a husband, father, and humanitarian. From romantic legend to spiritual seeker, his evolution isn't a reinvention. It's a return to truth. She said, "I knew about the age gap, but it didn't matter. When someone pulls you out of your own shadows and into the light, the rest fades." That's how Alejandra Silva described meeting Richard Gere. And from that moment on, their lives took a new rhythm, quiet, intentional, and deeply intertwined. Gone were the days of red carpets and fast-paced headlines for Gere. He found peace not in fame, but in something far rarer: emotional stillness. Pound Ridge, New York, became their haven, tucked away from the camera flashes. The same place he once lived with another love, but this time the walls didn't go up. The gates stayed open, not just to nature, but to healing. By 2019, their first child, Alexander, arrived, and the transformation was complete. Gere, once Hollywood's magnetic heartthrob, became a man of slow mornings, handwritten notes, and lullabies on the piano. The second child followed a year later, unnamed in the press, but never unloved. On Instagram, Alejandra offered quiet glimpses: golden leaves, meditation cushions, and little hands chasing light. No captions needed. The pictures spoke volumes. Richard, ever private, once said, "She's the most generous woman I've ever known." And in that one sentence, we see the man he's become. Not the actor, not the legend, but the father and partner who chose depth over applause. It's hard to imagine that this is the same man who once stood beside Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, wearing designer suits and winning hearts. But what makes Gere's journey gripping isn't the spotlight. It's how willingly he stepped out of it. Instead of clinging to past glory, he walked away with grace. At 74, his life now resembles a quiet film with no script, just moments: brewing tea, walking the dog, reading Tibetan philosophy. A striking contrast from the jet-set lifestyle many of his peers still chase. And yet, Gere's financial story is just as fascinating. Once earning over $10 million per film, his net worth is estimated at $120 million today. But rather than extravagant displays, Richard's fortune is cloaked in subtlety. The Pound Ridge estate alone is worth $10.5 million, complete with a private lake, stables, and sprawling gardens. But Gere doesn't collect properties for status. He lives in places that reflect who he is now: intentional, simple, elegant. He's owned homes in upstate New York, the Hamptons, and even a property in Connecticut. Not because of what he gives, but because of what he holds sacred. So why does this story resonate so deeply? Because it reminds us that you don't have to scream to be heard. That a man once married to a supermodel, once chased by headlines, can now spend his mornings watching dew settle on the grass. That love, when it's real, doesn't demand. It invites. and perhaps most importantly, that you can rewrite your life at any age. People often ask, what happened to Richard Gere? Here's the answer. Nothing tragic, nothing sensational. Just something very rare. He found peace. While others scrambled to stay relevant, he chose to be real. And while Alejandra could have sought spotlight, she sought soulfulness. Their story isn't about losing fame. It's about gaining freedom. So if you've ever wondered whether love can still find you after everything, after the divorces, after the failures, after the noise, this story answers that with quiet certainty. Yes, it can. If you believe that love sometimes shows up softly, late but right on time, comment, "Yes, I think so." Tell us your favorite Richard Gere chapter. Was it the romance with Cindy Crawford, the deep silence with Carrie Lowell, or this golden grounded chapter with Alejandra? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Because the stories you think you know often have a quieter, more beautiful ending.